So, hello everybody, and welcome to the Two Weekends. I'm Trug,
And I'm Heathel.
all the way from
And we're
Amsterdam.
live from Amsterdam. Hey, same bench.
There we go. How are you, Ito?
Good. Trying to love the rains of Amsterdam. Still not there yet. But we're building a relationship.
Okay, okay. So it's slow and steady, right? Can't
Oh,
go too
yeah, it'll
quickly
be
on all
super
this.
slow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super slow.
Yeah, it's going to take about 3 years maybe
I mean, in this day and
before
age,
we
you
decide to
need,
go on the first date.
yeah, in this day and age, you need that kind of time.
Really?
Yeah, because you have to break through the, first of all, you have to break through the filters, then you got to break through the social media barriers, and then the perceptions that they've created for themselves. And then eventually you get to know, like, okay, holy shit, this person is nothing what I want, so you need time.
I thought it was just a right swipe.
Yeah, but you don't get to know the person.
I'm not into this for serious relationships, dude. Like, you know me.
Then why the hell is it taking you 3 years? Like, get it over with tomorrow and then let's move on in life.
It's the first step.
Right, right. You're gonna take three
Also,
years
I'm
for
PMSing,
Hmm?
so my sense of humor is like absolutely down today.
Right.
So you are doing the jokes. Go on.
Our poor listeners. Anyway, so what are we gonna talk about today?
So I actually wanted to share a news with our listeners, which
Okay.
I found very interesting. And
Yeah.
when I read it, I immediately shared it with you.
Yeah.
And obviously, that was great fodder for podcast. It was a
Right.
podcast.
Okay.
I
I,
told
I,
you.
yeah, you know what? For the first time in my life, I'm going to agree that because normally I'm always like, yeah, you're going to be fine. Yeah, no, no. But anyway, yeah. So today we're going to talk about this very interesting piece first, and then we're also going to get into the whole Burger King controversy that happened out here in Dubai. So that's kind of what you can look forward to. So Hital, why don't you take it away with this very, very interesting thing that came up in Parliament?
So this is very amusing. Okay, it's supposed to be hardcore and serious, but I still think about it and I laugh my ass off. And this is actually okay. So a bunch of people have gone to the European Parliament.
When you say a bunch of people, I mean you mean the politicians, right?
No, but I'm assuming that the people who would have actually raised this concern would have been dairy and meat corporates.
Right, right.
But that was supposed to be more like a surprise towards the end, which you ruined. Anyway, so a bunch of these people who have realized that calling um, almond milk as milk is wrong and false advertising, or calling vegan sausages as sausages or vegan sausages is false advertising, and have actually taken this up to the government. And this has actually been discussed and and has had a decision recently over what needs to be done. So there are two bills that was raised, one Article 171 and the other one is Article 165. Article 171 has proposed to ban the use of terms such as vegan cheese, almond milk, yogurt style, and cheese alternative in product claims or product descriptions. Article or Amendment 165 proposed to ban a use proposed to ban the use of terms such as burger, sausage, steak, etc., to describe plant-based meat alternatives. Can we all just practice 3 seconds of silence for this world and its priorities in 2020? Please. We need the 3 second silence here, okay? You need to put some music or something.
By definition,
Anyway,
that's not silent.
so the European Parliament agreed to hear it and then has also said that they are willing to put Article 171 in
Mm.
place. And now it is officially banned to use words like vegan cheese or vegan yogurt or almond milk. But due to some change of heart or some emotion towards vegan meat, they've decided to not put the Amendment 165 ahead. And they can still use the words like burgers and sausages and so on. Also, Article 171 was passed with a majority. consequently banning dairy-related terms, according to veganfirst.com.
Right. So this is, I mean, when you sent me this news and stuff, right? Like, so this is something actually that's come up before, right? You know, our take was more like, what's the big deal here? Like, what is your problem, right? Like, there's a bunch of us that have made this choice. If we're looking to get an alternative to the stuff we used to enjoy without the cruelty, why does it bother you so much that we call it something similar? And again, as you said, even like saying things like cheese alternative is not okay, right? It's not. We're not even saying it's cheese. We're saying it's a cheese alternative or a dairy-free something, and that's causing so much heartburn, for want of a better word.
Yeah, but I actually find it funny that obviously this has come from a place of fear. And corporates are now scared because their dairy industry in general is seeing a huge decline. Meat industry is seeing a huge decline.
Yeah.
People are being more aware, especially after COVID. A couple of points to our podcast as well for raising awareness amongst the general public.
What was that? Is that like a self high five? I don't know if you watch Scrubs, but there was a guy named Todd in that he would like always go around high fiving people, and then you know sometimes like he would make like a horrible like double entendre joke, and everybody would be like, no, we're not high fiving that, and he'd be like, self five, and then just walk away. So yeah, that's what it kind of
Dude,
sounded like.
like we're isolated. There's no one else to praise us.
That's not.
What?
You know, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you're already going downhill, gravity's taking care of it. I don't know why you're pushing. Like,
But it's true. Like we brought so much awareness to the general public of 700 people who listen to our episodes on
well, there you go.
average.
So isn't that like a positive thing? Like, why do you make it sound as though like nobody's listening in
Because
isolation?
I need to sell myself. This is how this world functions. If I don't tell people that I'm awesome, they will never believe that I'm
But
awesome.
telling them on the show, which they're not listening to, does not help anybody. We have to do this outside of the show.
You don't know. We might have new listeners. Stop being such a negative Nancy.
Again, if they're already listening
Sorry,
to us, we
negative
don't have
knowledge.
to.
Stop it, Chirag. I'm losing my rhythm here. What was the
Yeah,
point I was making?
because
Can you
because
remind me?
you were in so much rhythm when we started this thing. Jeez, yeah, I told you you would. I told you would pick up your you would don't have to worry about your sense of humor.
I'm saying obviously this is happening because the dairy industry is now scared. Um, but it's funny if they really seriously think that banning terms like this is going to stop demand and going to shift consumerism. Or
Yeah, and especially now where like the now awareness is fairly mainstream. People are aware. I mean, whether people go for it, don't go for it, and stuff, and we can have that debate. But it's pretty. I mean, I don't have to explain the fact that I'm what me being a vegan means. Yeah, we have to sometimes get into some nitty gritty. Like, oh, can you eat this and can you eat that? But I don't have to explain that there is a lifestyle choice that called veganism. So I think it seems a bit too late anyway. If they really wanted to do this, you should have done it like 5 years ago maybe, and they would have delayed this a little bit, but I mean, what's the point now?
exactly, and it's not like the plant-based industry is going to sit quiet and be like, okay, I'm just going to call my milk plant-based juice from now on. Like that's not going to happen. They're going to
Yeah.
call it something like milk, but with an E, or milky, or something like that. Just the stuff that they did with cheese by adding a Z to it, so it's still going to read the same.
Yeah.
And the brands do that, right? They do this kind of stuff. But thinking that this is actually going to revive their industry, I think that's a bit embarrassing. And I think that they need to probably put this energy into seeing how they can make their businesses more sustainable, and maybe, kind of produce something that the consumer is demanding these days instead of
Right.
forcing the consumer to change their lifestyle. So, yeah, but the good news is, or a little shining ray of light in all of this, is that even though it has been passed by the European Parliament, it still needs to be agreed by all the EU member states, and only then will it come to fruition. So, Oatly has actually slammed this decision, and they seem to be pretty angry. They've made a post on Instagram, and if anyone's on Instagram, they can check them out. And they've actually added some really good points. They've mentioned that this means we can no longer call our products milk free or talk about any of the health and environmental advantages they offer. It's a wacko, incomprehensible direction to take in the middle of a climate crisis. And especially since this amendment runs contrary to the EU's own climate goals and their ambition to encourage the consumption of plant based foods, which is so true because I know in EU right now there is a lot of, we've recently had the Paris Agreement. There's a lot of stuff going on about climate change. Europe in general is very, very passionate about this, or seems to be very passionate about it on paper. And just coming up with such kind of stuff actually just blows people's mind away. And um, they've also mentioned a couple of solutions to this. They've said that um, if you want to do things right, then maybe ask the dairy industry on what is the climate impact of their products and publish it on their cartons, so that the consumers can make their own decisions. Or just hope that the EU member states that, like I mentioned, will not let this go ahead, and hopefully they can retract this decision made by the EU Parliament. So I think it will definitely um, affect some of the brands. But I also know, but I also believe that the hit would be for the first year or something. But I know that brands and advertising creatives and all these people are going to come up with some sort of solution that's going to help them out. But what at this point these brands really need is a lot of support from consumers, and hopefully that the consumers will make a wise choice when it comes to buying food products.
Yeah, and I think also like if you see, I mean, there's also an amount of preemptiveness, right? So this is already in the news. It may take a few weeks, months for this to kind of move along the way. I mean, if you have to get all the member states on it, so it's not like and Oatly or anybody else for that matter cannot already start working on other things. You don't even have to wait until this actually happens for you to then take a hit and then wait for take a hit and then wait for it to come out later. This is one. Two, I mean, you're already seeing, by the way, tons of products, right? That I mean, I see them in the stores here, where actually, like, if you pay attention, they're labeled vegan. I mean, chips is a good example, right? Like potato chips or crisps or whatever you call them. But if you walk through the aisle, there are tons of them that are labeled vegan, but they're sitting just regularly in the aisle. They're not going overboard with it or saying that okay, like we're dairy, like egg free or whatever. They don't do any of that. But if you actually sit and read, and like it says suitable for vegans, for example, right? And I think that that's something that it'll become eventually a way of just subtly messaging, because a lot of these products are already becoming mainstream enough that they're not in separate sections sitting in a corner somewhere for you. Although to be fair, that's nice and convenient. But it's also they've started showing up in a lot of places that's regular. If you go to a Carrefour today, if you want to get Daya cheese, you have to walk through the cheese aisle. There's no separate section. There's no vegan cheese aisle sitting in a corner somewhere. You have to actually walk through the cheese aisle, and smack dab in the middle of the row, you see packets of Daya cheese. Oh, well, sorry, I'm not allowed to use the word cheese. But anyway, so yeah. So I think that's I don't think it's going to take as much of a hit as they think it will take. One, two, as I think you correctly pointed out, I don't think this is going to revive their industry either. I mean, if I were a meat producer or whatever, and I'm seeing that my customers are moving away to plant-based meat, if I introduce a plant-based meat and I start working on it today, and I introduce it a year from today, like it'll have a lot more credibility than a random. Again, and I don't mean to say Beyond Burger or Impossible Burger are random companies, because they've made a name for themselves today, but they started from nothing, right? Whereas you are Tony Roma's. I mean, I should really not start naming brands, but you know what I mean, right? Like if you have Tony Roma's introduces a plant-based steak option on their menu, like people will flock to eat it. Like there is a way to drive business to yourself, right? Like there are ways to deal with this. But the problem is, of course, is that you have this sort of almost blindness, fear, condescension / other words, and we can talk about ego too. That like this is just, if we just kind of keep swapping it like a whack-a-mole thing, it'll just go away eventually. Which is just this to me really funny thing, because anybody can study data from the last 5 years and tell you that this is not going away anywhere, and if anything, it's getting stronger by the mile. And then, as you mentioned, I mean, something like Corona has actually kicked it upwards that much further, because people are a little bit more wary than they were. even 6 months ago. So yeah, it's a bizarre strategy. I mean, instead of competing better, instead of figuring out, as you said, maybe being more transparent about what they're doing, maybe introducing their own line of stuff that is meeting the demands that they should be meeting. They seem to be like, let's just quash them in some way. I mean, honestly, at this point, with the number of dairy intolerances that we see around the world and other meat intolerances and all the other things that are going on, if you don't allow somebody to say that they're a milk, like an almond milk, they'll just say they're an alternative, right? An alternative source of protein, or you never know. They'll actually find branding that'll make more sense than the one it is making right now. Right now, they have to combine with the milk thing and go after milk, but maybe they'll have to say we're an alternative source of protein made from almonds, and then what are you gonna do? Right, and then when someone is looking for that, that's what they're going to see first. So, yeah, I don't fully get it. I mean, I don't know how passing a law like this is going to work. I mean, and even if it does, it works maybe in some countries, but it's not going to be worldwide anyway. I mean, Europe is a very odd place to try this out too, because I mean, if you see the general trend of companies introducing vegan products, they tend to do in Europe first, because I think the demand's quite high there, right? So if you look at McDonald's and you look at all of these companies, I mean, they tested out their vegan stuff in Europe, right? And then kind of took it worldwide from there. So yeah, I mean, to me, this is just like this. It's maybe like this can be summarized with your opening line, which is like, where are the priorities in 2020? Honestly, like, what are we focusing on here?
Yeah, and another thing that I'm thinking is that where were these people when the inventors of peanut butter named it peanut butter? Um, or when people used to call coconut meat as coconut meat or coconut flesh.
Yeah,
Um, so it's not like it's coming from a point of logic, or it's not like the dairy industry is actually worried about the consumer picking up wrong products from the shelf, thinking that they're picking up milk, because these products actually, in fact, go out of their way to make sure that they tell the consumer that they're vegan. It's not like, oh, I read milk and I just picked it up because there was no other information on the packet.
no,
There
I mean, like,
is, if
you're
you,
right. It's very, very, very
yeah, there are
visible.
pictures of, exactly, there are pictures of almonds or oats. There are pictures mentioned that this is dairy free. I've seen certain brands where they have a cow and then they have the stop sign over that cow, so they actually make an effort to stand out on the shelf and scream that they're plant based. So
Yeah.
I really don't think that this is coming out of logic or concern for the consumer. This is purely fear,
Mm.
and of course the byproducts that come with that fear, which is ego and um, just delusion
Yeah, or
to
denial. Yeah.
see, yeah, denial to see what the market is actually demanding. So yeah, I genuinely hope like the other member states see the foolishness in this and don't let it pass, but only time will tell. It's the way the world functions these days, nothing is surprising anymore.
I have one other thing too here, I think, and I was thinking about this earlier. Like, as a well, formerly vegetarian, now vegan person, I can also make the opposite argument, right? Like, where were all of you, or why was naming not a big deal for you when you were inserting incorrect products into my food, right? When you were adding egg to bind something without telling me, when you were adding, I don't know, meat into
Gelatin.
gelatin into a protein bar as a way of enhancing the protein, but not telling me, and therefore, quote unquote, violating my diet or violating my life choices. And it didn't bother you at the time to just say, hey, here's a protein bar, right? You never specified it. So this is again, like, that's the other side of this thing too. It's almost like, I don't want to use the words, but almost like karma, right? Like, it's like, well, you know what? You kind of duped us along for a very, very long time. Guess what? Like, now your name's being taken away, and I mean, tough luck, like.
Sorry, like just on your point, like giving ingredients names like sodium monochloride, or okay, this is sodium monochloride is something which is regular,
Right.
but like calling it like a gelling agent or a gelatin, but you're not
Mm.
actually saying that it is either coming from pork or beef,
Mm.
depending on
Mm.
which country you are in. And I remember how shocked I was when I actually found out that this is what gelatin means.
Yeah.
Because just like you, I was also raised a vegetarian, and I don't know, like as kids, we always ate gummy bears and all that jazz.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
20, 25 years later, you're just like, oh my God, I've been eating beef all this while, or a beef byproduct all this while. So yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Okay, yeah. So kind of continuing from that point as well. I mean, we're talking about this. First of all, there's this like weird dichotomy as we just discussed with these two laws, right? Like calling a burger is okay even if it's vegetarian or plant based, but milk is not, and this is kind of like a weird thing. Like I don't understand why one could get passed and one couldn't. If the idea is you don't want confusion, both should have been passed, and the idea is this is silly, none of them should have been passed, right? Like this doesn't make any sense. But anyway, as we were talking about this whole thing about like sort of misrepresentation and dealing with all of that and so on, I mean, we kind of want to talk about what's been going on here, but it also kind of takes its life in something that started last year with a company called Burger King, right? And so over the last few weeks, or rather a couple of weeks ago, Burger King locally here in the UAE, it took a lot of heat, for want of a better word, because they introduced what they called a plant-based burger. Then I went online and I discovered that actually they were taking a lot of heat because, there were two kind of parts to this controversy, right? The first was this confusion about the burger itself, the patty itself. So there was a lot of confusion around the fact that is it when they say it's plant-based, but there was confusion about them because somebody had mentioned egg getting involved in this whole thing, and they were like, "Oh, hello, egg isn't plant-based. Like, what are you on about?" So that I think there was like some really, really, really poor miscommunication from Burger King's part in the beginning when they launched this thing. I think they were just not prepped. But then later on, as sort of this clarification started to emerge, and it took a few days for like us to get there, we discovered that the burger meal, as the sandwich, let's call it that, right? Like the buns and everything, the whole package, had mayo in it. Right, and it's just regular mayo. Now, you and me know, and I'm sure a lot of people do as well, that a lot of places introduce vegan burgers here, and tons of them do. But if they have any kind of mayo in it, then it's always vegan mayo, right? They may choose the cheese can be sometimes tricky. They'll be like, listen, cheese is regular, so if you want it fully vegan, no cheese, right? But mayo it's never been a thing, right? We're introducing mayo. Whereas they are using the regular mayo in it. And so that created a second wave of outrage because it was like, wait a minute, you said it's a plant-based burger. Why is there mayo in it, right? Because obviously mayo is not vegan. Their clarification to that was just simply, no, we just said it's a plant-based patty. We never said it's a plant-based burger. And like, then that just... So all in all, Burger King went through a little bit of controversy out here. And it went on for quite some time. And the thing is, it was so muddled and miscommunicated that I remember, and I shared this with you as well, that there were posts when Burger King was like, no. If you get it without the mayo, it's a fully plant-based burger, right? The only issue is the mayo, and the mayo's got egg. And there would be people like writing back to them like, no, we know that the patty's got egg in it. Right, it had reached that point where like the repliers were like, no, we know what you've put in your burger, even though you don't know what the hell is going on. And I think it was just an unfortunate, serious case of like miscommunication and stuff. And it created. I think the messaging was pretty poor as well. And I want to talk a little bit about their introductions in the rest of the world. But in other parts of the world, when the Burger King announced their thing, they were supposed to use the Impossible Burger, right? So that was kind of the verification for vegans to be like, okay, the Impossible Burger is a plant-based burger, and that's what they're introducing. Out here, though, they're doing something else, right? I don't know where they're sourcing it from or what the deal is, but they're not using the Impossible Burger here. So it's a quote-unquote plant-based burger that either they've developed or they have a supplier that's bringing in. And so that created even more confusion, right? Because it's like, wait, it's not the Impossible Burger? Like, what's going on? And anyway, that created that. So, I'm sure that...
What have they named it?
They're just calling it the Whopper.
Okay, because everywhere else they call it the Impossible Whopper.
Yeah, they're calling it the Whopper. They're not using the word impossible anywhere in the branding here.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of what happened, and I just thought it was just really interesting to see this thing, and I want to get your initial thoughts, but then I will get into a little bit of context because it actually does not make any sense to me how poorly they managed it here, considering the context with which they brought it here. But yeah, I just want to get your initial thoughts. I mean, I like I said, there was a lot of outrage among vegans, especially to be like, well, why this miscommunication? Why create so much fuss? When you're introducing something that's plant-based, that like adding then components into it that are not plant-based. I mean, come on, who's going to eat the patty, right? Like, obviously, we're going to eat the whole burger. So why create this confusion at all?
Yeah. I think this is another topic that amuses me as well, because if you have set foot out to target a certain consumer demand, How have you not done your research? how how hard is it? Your burger consists of three things that could be unvegan, which is the bun, the patty, and the dressing. And I include cheese in the dressing.
Yeah,
Well,
and even toppings, for example, but I mean, it's tomato and onion, so it's fine. Yeah.
yeah, right. So that's just vegan anyway. But it's mostly mayo, mustard, cheese. Uh, and you couldn't even get that right. And it's not like, okay, I know vegan cheese can be expensive, and if you are a company like Burger King who wants to keep price parity across all its products, then yeah, you can just say, sorry, I don't have vegan cheese. And probably Burger King thinks that, okay, maybe adding vegan cheese at this stage is not very sustainable for them financially, so I'm just going to offer the patty. Fair enough. But finding vegan mayo is not hard. It's
No.
vegetarian mayo. It's just eggless mayo, and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So when you told me that this is something, because I remember you shared the Instagram
The
link with
post.
me about
Yeah.
how vegans in the UAE were thrashing Burger King left, right, and center in the comment section. Um, my first thought was, oh my God, this has happened with me on two different occasions. Because last year, when I went to the US, I think that was around that time they had introduced the Impossible Whopper. Um, and I don't think at that time Impossible Burger had come out with that controversy of rat testing and stuff. So I was like, oh my God, Burger King has a new burger.
Yeah.
Let me just go and taste it. And so I went and I was like, hey, can I have the vegan burger? And I don't remember she or he, but they were like, yeah, sure. But let me just tell you that we use the same grill. And I was like, what? Um, why would you do that? Why would you cook my plant-based burger in animal fat? That's forget vegan mayo, forget vegan cheese. Like this is common sense.
Yeah.
And so I at that point I was like, okay, no thanks. So I just left. But I thought that okay, maybe because they're just starting up, they're still trying to scale up, which means buying an extra grill, blah blah blah. So they're not ready. A couple of months later, I visited Poland, and I remember going into a train station between two cities, and they had advertised the Impossible Whopper everywhere. So I was like, okay, that's great. Maybe by now they would have learned the lesson. And now I'm in Europe. Like European restaurants in general are just more conscious of these things because so same thing. Like after everything, he's like, by the way, let me just tell you, we make it on the same grill. And I'm like, why, dude? Like, why? Anyway, so I left again. Till date, I haven't tried it. So when you shared that article with me, I was like, yeah, not surprised at all. So I really don't know why Burger King is failing so hard because its other counterparts like Pizza Hut, Papa John's, Domino's. I think in the US there's something called as In and Out Burger.
Yeah.
Um, the guys who make those what was that sausage dish in the
Greg's.
UK?
Greg's.
Yeah, Greg's. They've all hit the nail, right? They're all doing it right. They've obviously had some research done, basic research done. Not you don't have to go out there and sit in a lab and experiment on how you want to introduce it. This is fully on the company and nothing else.
So you mentioned a lot of examples. I mean, I can give you some local ones. So we have Field Roast here. They have vegan burgers, right? That you can get, you can source. Beyond Meat is freely available here. So we have a lot of restaurants here that are that have included a plant-based option on their menu just by sourcing Beyond Meat, like not even trying to develop something in their own. But you mentioned that like it's why are they not getting it right? Right? Some of this stuff is common sense. Well, here's my kicker, right? This is not their first introduction of this thing, right? Because Burger King introduced in the US back last year, in middle of last year. They then took it to Europe, as you pointed out correctly, earlier this year or late last year. And now they've come here. So you would think that this is a process that would have been like, okay, let's take our learnings from where we've done this before, and let's make sure that we don't make the same mistakes again. Well, here's the kicker. This is the third time, at least publicly that they've done such a launch. This is the third time they've run into the exact same issues, the exact same ones. They're not even new ones. The only difference is that this time, as I mentioned, they're sourcing the burger from somewhere else and not using Impossible. But in November 2019, roughly, I think, somebody sued Burger King in the US for doing this exact thing of cooking them on the same grill.
Oh, really?
Right? So there's a class action suit that I don't think that there's an outcome yet to it, but they filed saying we've been duped because you're cooking in animal fat, right? So I mean, that's in November 2019. This got introduced in Dubai in October 2019. Like, you did not learn a single lesson. That, by the way, in out here in Burger King, they're using the same grill. There's no separate grill. There's no nothing. There's no, whatever. A. B, I think I need to look at the date, 1 second. Yeah, so in January 2020, Burger King actually formally issued a statement saying, hey, just FYI, we never said our Impossible Burger was vegan, because they went over a mayo controversy and a bread controversy, right? And so they already done this in January 2020. How did they introduce this thing in October 2020 in the UAE, or maybe across the Gulf, with the same mistakes? Like, you had 9 months to learn that, hey, listen, if you introduced a plant-based burger and cook it on the same grill, vegans are going to have a problem with that. If you introduce a plant-based burger but put egg mayo in it, then you're going to have a branding problem, because you can't say, you can't just keep holding on the fort that I said plant-based patty. I never said plant-based burger. Like, because you never sell the burger, you never sell the patty. You're not selling patties by the dozen, are you? Right? Like, so this is not really a debate you can have. And so, and then on top of that, to not equip your social media teams and everybody else with the correct information that created so much confusion. I mean, I'm telling you, right? Like, to me, it was hilarious in some ways and really sad in others to see somebody insisting back at the social media guy of Burger King that, no, there's egg in your patty. And he's like, no, but I'm serious. There's no egg in our patty. I can send you a list of ingredients. Like, they're having this like useless debate, something that could have been corrected if they just messaged properly from the beginning. But it's not like this is their first market that they tried this. Like, then how can you make the mistake? And you are not the first burger company to try this. So, like, look out and read a few newspapers before you launch something like this. Like, mind-boggling stuff, honestly. And it's like, I'm just sitting there going, like, what are you trying to do? By the way, on a side note, there is a comment somewhere that they made earlier in the year, I think in one of the other markets, I don't think they did it here, is saying, actually, our burger is not even targeted for vegans, by the way. It's targeted for quote-unquote flexitarians, right? And it's like, we just want to provide an alternative for people that don't want to eat meat, right? But they're not, like, fixated about mayo and other things, right? I mean, none of your messaging says that, like, none of it, right? Because then just call it meat-free, right? Why introduce words like plant-based, right? Like, why get into that kind of? Obviously, you're going to cause a problem. But B, I mean, like, why are vegans not a target for you as well, right? Like, if you're going to introduce, if you're a fast food chain and you are excluding an entire section of the population.
My problem now is, what I have a problem with is that, not the fact that they made this mistake thrice, but the fact that
we
they
know of.
are not, that we know of, but the fact that they're not acknowledging it and apologizing. They are going on and on about,
with the same launch plan.
We meant, but that is what we meant, and it's not meant for these people, it's not meant for that people. But dude, just say, sorry, we messed up because we're doing this for the first time.
Yeah.
And just do it right. It's going to kill you. You're Burger King. You're too big. So just do it right.
Man,
so I just don't understand this. Why are corporates so scared of consumers who buy their products? If your consumer is educating you, is taking time out of his or her life, going on social media, questioning you, it already shows that there is an interest. It already shows that if you do this right, there's a huge queue of people willing to try it out and support you. Why would you not do that?
For a company like Burger King to just make small adjustments to figure things out. I mean, you didn't have to introduce this here, right? You could have sorted out your grilling system first in the US. Like, you could have sorted it out somewhere else. I mean, it's not hard. Like, I don't understand. Like, these are companies that have, immense supply chains that are like down to a T and stuff, right? If you remember when McDonald's, I think this was was it in Finland when they introduced the vegan burger and stuff? They actually explicitly stated that, yeah, we're going to make sure that we're using separate oil to fry it or something. I don't forget what it was, but there was something to it. And they were like, yeah, that's why we're doing it in a very small testing ground, because we can't, our machines and everything are made to fit very, very, like these specs that we have for all of our stores. So we have to see if we can reuse one of the existing containers to create a purely vegan product, and we're going to test it in a small place, and if it works, we'll scale it down. That's how a company would make these decisions. That's how they should, right? So it's almost like these guys were like, okay, we tried it here, it didn't work. How about we try it there and see? Maybe they'll be more forgiving. I don't know.
No one will notice.
Yeah, no one will notice. And you know what? I'll tell you what. We live in a very connected era, and mind you, we live also in an era where most of us are sitting at home and staying very connected, even like we're not even running around sometimes, right? We live in a very connected area. I mean, it took me like 10 minutes to look up the information of the fact that Burger King has made this mistake twice already, and they're being sued in the US for this exact problem, right? Like, it takes me 10 minutes to look that up, right? It's not even that long. So what did you think? How are they going to hide this? So yeah, there's, anyway, I want to add one more point here, by the way, which is, it's not even a good burger, man.
Did you try it already?
I did try. It's not a good burger.
Oh no.
Honestly, like, so as part of an experiment, and because I wanted to see like what the fuss was about and all that, I did pick up the burger. I will give them some level of points, and you mentioned this as well, and maybe this is one of the reasons for it. It was priced reasonably. It was priced like any other burger, right? So it wasn't like I had to pay this premium just to get this plant-based thing and so on, right? So kudos. But honestly, it wasn't great. I mean, it was a very, I don't even want to go eat it again. Forget, even if they do all the things right, like, I don't want to go eat it again.
So what was there in your burger besides the patty? Like in terms of dressings?
There was lettuce. I think there was a tomato and an onion, maybe, but I can't. I'm trying to remember now. I have a picture somewhere which I should look into back, because this was over a week ago. And ketchup.
Yeah, obviously, the patty does not taste nice according to you. But even you can't give somebody a burger which is so half-hearted, like.
Because again, like, because I said because their workaround, because again, there's a reason why there's mayo in burgers, right? It's to create like this sort of binding layer and all of that, right? And so
these things like save the
sometimes save a burger, correct? And so when you know that someone like me has to walk up there and be like, yeah, I don't want the mayo, right? There's no alternative. The point was there was no alternative. It's not like they gave me ketchup in my burger. I got ketchup with the fries, and I used that as my dipping agent. Like, it wasn't.
Well, that's what I was asking. There was no dressing in your burger
No.
when given to you.
No.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. So
That's
that did not.
disgusting.
So that's what I'm saying. So that did not help. But honestly, even okay, we can compare it to a few places, right? So there's Field Roast has got a kind of burger anyway. We've seen a place like GBK, for example, have a couple of veggie/vegan burger options, right? Or at least the patties are vegan, and then whatever they make a veggie or vegan burger out of it. And then we have the Beyond Meat burger, which is available in tons of places, and I've had it. I've, over the course of lockdown, tried a couple of different brands, and I really like the one from Moving Mountains. They've done a great job, I feel. Like, it's a more mushroom-based patty, and I think it cooks really well. And it's a very meaty texture still, but like, it's enjoyable, and I've made it at home. So for me, there are things that make you feel like you're having a burger, and it's not like I had them with cheese or anything, but they actually are genuinely nice tasting patty. Like, it works with the whole thing. I mean, compare this to like what I saw with Subway, right? Just as a quick example. So Subway has apparently recently introduced meatballs, vegan meatballs, and something called TLC, which they call taste like chicken. Right? So they're actually calling it TLC. And it's like this fried flat thing that they supposedly have a chicken-like texture in it, but whatever. The sign is so clear. Right? Vegan meatballs, vegan, very clear. Tastes like chicken, star says. It's vegetarian because it contains egg. That's it. Like, I didn't have to have a single conversation with the guy. I just said, I'll try the vegan meatballs.
How was it?
Actually, not too bad.
You shouldn't be sent out to try junk food. You need me.
No, I will still
Your
attest that.
benchmark of comparing junk food is like your high-end gourmet
No. It's not. I
moving
mean,
mountains kind of
well, first of all, moving mountains.
stuff.
I don't think they're gourmet
Like
at
you're eating
all.
crab
But
food. Like just say if the crab is good enough to be
I
eaten
think no,
again.
I did say it was good enough, and I would still say that no matter what my skills at evaluating junk food, the Burger King burger, my evaluation stands.
I trust you.
So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about. We wanted to kind of get into a little bit about the whole controversy. I think it was an interesting. I think it'll be an interesting case study. The only difference is I don't think Burger King is going to be studying that very much, but I think I'm hoping that other people will notice and at least take some lessons from it, because I think it's very important that, like, at least, I mean, it takes 5 minutes of thought. Well, okay, not really, but it takes a little bit of thought to kind of get this right. So let's hope that more people will do it soon.
So let us know if you guys think there's any other brand out there in the market that is making fun of itself without realizing it yet. And we would love to feature them on our show and make fun of them some more. Um, and do find us on Instagram. We're the.2.vegans. We're on Twitter as well, the two vegans. We're also on Facebook and Chirag and.
And we're in all of the podcast players too. So if you want to listen to our episodes, all you got to do is subscribe for free in your favorite podcast player. Find our episodes, and I mean, if you're a new listener, welcome. We've got a nice little catalog of stuff you can go back to listen to. And if you've been with us from the beginning, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Sayonara.
Ciao.